Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of some of those players who are kind of coming to the end of their contracts at Celtic, and I mean, I think it speaks to a wider point of squad planning. You know,
Mm.
we look at, I mean, I don't want to bring him up again, but you know, Brendan Rodgers and obviously Leicester do exceedingly well in terms of squad planning because they essentially, it seems as though they buy players for
Mm.
those starting 11 spots before the players that they're replacing have already been moved on. And I think that, you know, one of those players who will need to be replaced, and you do question, is he replaceable, is Kristoffer Ajer, because he's been
Mm.
absolutely sensational for you for quite a while now. You know, obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, he's the 22-year-old Norwegian international who you signed for $500,000 in 2016. And, you know, looking up here, he's got 172, 173 games for Celtic at, you know, at the age of 22, as well as 60 games for Start in Norway and 17 for Kilmarnock as well on loan. You know, that's a lot of football that he's played. And, you know, he's been there on merit, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's a strange defender as well because his sort of key attributes or attributes that might make him appealing to high bidding suitors don't necessarily um, aren't necessarily his defending capabilities. Like he is formidable at stepping out with the ball.
Mm.
His passing is extremely good. His short game, extremely competent. I think he's our main conduit coming out of defence, really. But yeah, it's his kind of ability unnerving ability at 6'5" to glide past people in the midfield and break lines that way. And he's I reckon if I could gather the progressive yards, you know, for Scottish football, which aren't readily available to me, and I'm definitely not paying for it, he would be up there. His one-on-one defending, I think, needs improvement. I think I remember reading his tackle completion rate was between like 60 and 65%, which at that level for someone who's, you know, national team manager has professed that he's sort of coasting because or he's not performing as well as he can do because he's finding the SPFL ridiculously easy, doesn't suggest that he's all that elite in that regard. But yeah, you're going to get someone whose defending's actually great. His area win percentage is normally up there. It's normally in the 70%. Yeah, so great at that. And trying to think what else I might have missed about him as sort of a mini profile. I think he would be very well suited to a possession heavy side who's, you know, who are tactically sort of fluid. If he bombs on with a ball, the fullback is going to,
Yeah.
you know, judiciously just swap out for him. Maybe not a Newcastle who apparently are going to open the bidding for him at 10 million, because then he will just be mostly defending, right? And we won't see the things we like about him the most. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one where he goes. I think Newcastle try the cheeky little bit at 8 million. I think Celtic know that if another team gets involved, that's quickly going to become 10, 12. But that's a palatable price for me, 12 mil. And I think replaceable in terms of his defensive output.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But getting someone of his skill set with his potential, is not doable at the price we operate at. But I always think with Celtic players now, 3-4 years service, if they get into 23, 24 and they're getting itchy feet, fair enough. Mm-hmm. Let's just make sure it's a good price for the club. And in that sense, the Kieran Tierney transfer, bit of a game changer, because I've always wanted us to be a bit more like Porto or Sporting, who are like, okay, we're from a lesser league, but if you want our best player, you can pay us £30 million for him. And that's always been, like, Scottish football's always been scoffed at in that regard. But now, you know, there's a modern history is building up to, and making Scottish football more credible. The Van Dijks, the Fraser Forsters, the Kieran Tierneys. I think that's becoming more common practice, or clubs aren't trying to undercut us as much. So yeah, like I said, 10 to 12 million, I'll take it, mate.
I was going to say 8 million, and you know, to then go to and play at Newcastle, it would be him, Kristoffer Ajer, and Alan St-Maximin just herring up the pitch by themselves. At least St-Maximin would have a teammate then to actually support him when Callum Wilson's injured. But I think there are better suited clubs to Ajer's skill set in Europe and in the Premier League, because we know a lot of players from the SPFL do end up down south of the border. But I mean, yeah, progressive ball carrying centre back, you know, that undoubtedly his best attribute. I think he's a player that is just, yeah, very, very. I mean, those progressive yards, I have seen sort of data viz where Kristoffer Ajer has been streets, and I mean streets ahead of every other centre half in the Scottish Premiership. So in that regard, so yeah, he's a top player.
Do you know, he reminds me of a little bit Adam Webster at
Yeah.
Brighton, and you know, if Brighton were prepared to pay £25 million for him when he was at Bristol City, then part of me does think like this is a guy with a very similar skill set who I think would adapt to the level, you know, relatively quickly. Maybe we should hold out for a little bit more, but the contract situation's kind of made that untenable.
Yeah, exactly.
So he could have been a 20 million export for us, but he's not going to be. But so I've reined it in, my expectations. I've reined them in.
It's good to speak to somebody who's got these realistic expectations, because I'm not having to pour cold water on these. Yeah, well, we're going to sell him for 30, and I'm going to go, well, you do realise his contract's up in 2022. Like, you know, this is decision time, you know. But
I think that natural pessimism goes hand in hand with being a fan of Scottish football, to be
of course,
perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's a well, I mean, following the Scottish national team, it's a special form of torture as well, you know. And, you know, being a Newcastle fan as well, it does have its, you know, the joy of the Ryan Christie goal in Serbia was kind of very was very strange, because I hadn't sort of felt that at club level for forever. So it was Scottish football does have that way of humbling you, I think.